Welcome to episode 19 of the Cancer Pod. This is the third installment of the At the Movies Pod. In today's episode, we're reviewing Supersize Me, a documentary from 2004.
I'm Dr. Tina Kaiser, and when I was little, my favorite fast food was Wendy's.
And I'm Dr. Leah Sherman. And when I was a kid, my favorite fast food was Arby's.
Really?
Yeah, horsey sauce.
And we're two naturopathic doctors who practice integrative cancer care.
But we're not your doctors.
This is for education, entertainment, and informational purposes only.
Do not apply any of this information without first speaking to your doctor.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast by the host and their guests are solely their own.
Welcome to the Cancer Pod. Hey, Tina.
Hey, Leah, how's it going?
Pretty well. Hey, Tina, this is the third movie of our series.
I love this. I'm having a good time.
This is fun. I mean, we're gonna revert back to our old format, but I think we're gonna come back to these if people like them.
Yes, we'll see what people say. So if you like it, let us know. If you don't, let us know that too.
And so this last film in our At the Movie series is a 2004 film that was actually, I think it was a winner at Sundance.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
Yeah, it is called Supersize Me. And I thought I saw it when it first came out, but I actually think I saw it a few years later because, I was in school when it came out, and there's no way I watched a movie when I was in school because I was too busy.
Right. That makes sense.
So the movie is rated PG-13. I don't think we discussed the ratings on the previous ones, but they had like a lot of those little things in the upper left-hand corner. I don't forget what they're called. Foul language, nudity, sexual content, smoking, substance use, and violence.
Did it have all those things?
I don't know. Definitely had the nudity.
Well, yeah.
So the description of the movie, which is available if you have Prime Video, it's available there. If you have the subscription, it's for free on Pluto TV, I think YouTube and Tubi. The description is director Morgan Spurlock's social experiment in fast food gastronomy sees him attempting to subsist uniquely on food from the McDonald's menu for an entire month. In the process, his weight balloons, his energy level plummets. This is giving away the whole dang movie.
Mm-hmm.
He also examines the corporate giant's growing role in the lives of American consumers and explores its methods of indoctrinating young people and its contribution to America's obesity epidemic. Okay, I didn't read that too well, but I didn't want to tell you all the stuff we're going to talk about.
Got it.
That's the premise of the movie.
Yeah, so he basically eats McDonald's and only McDonald's for an entire month.
Right. He has very specific rules. He just can't eat willy-nilly, right? I mean, he has very specific guidelines.
Yeah, so he sets out and he says there's 4 rules. He will only supersize a meal when he's asked to supersize a meal. And he has to eat everything on the menu at least once. And if it's an item and McDonald's doesn't sell it, he can't eat it. So he can only eat off the menu. But that does include water. So he could purchase his water off the menu. And then he has to have 3 square meals per day. Now that's his eating rules. And then he kind of alludes and quickly kind of glosses over this point. He also is intentionally sedentary.
Right, because he's a New Yorker. And for anyone who's lived in New York City, I mean, you walk, that's your transportation, right? What's really funny is one of the McDonald's he shows at the beginning, I lived near that one in the East Village back in the day. But yeah, so he intentionally takes cabs instead of his usual walking.
Yes. So that's an important factor that we're going to come back to.
And so what I want to do is I want to explain what Supersize is. Supersize ended about the time, right before the movie came out. They stopped supersizing. I believe it was it March of 2004, maybe?
I don't know. I thought it was just after the movie. You think it was just before the movie?
The movie came out in May.
Okay.
And I thought that I'd read that the supersizing stopped in March. So a large soda available at McDonald's now is a 32 ounce. And so to supersize it, you'd go up to 42 ounces. And it was just like a few cents more. I don't know, maybe a quarter at the most. It wasn't that much. So a 42 ounce soda is 410 calories, whereas it's now 290 calories for a large. And then the fries were 7 ounces And now there's 6.2 ounces. And so I guess it went from 610 calories to now the largest size you can get is 490 calories.
Okay. Okay. So roughly with the soda, it sounds like 42 ounces was 410 calories. So roughly 10 calories per ounce.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think sometimes I think they have like self-serve things now. So it can vary, right? I mean, if you're pouring your own soda, like you can at some fast food places, you could put very little ice and more drink, So who knows, like if it was really 42 ounces, is it just more ice and the same amount of soda? Who knows? But anyway, so that's what Supersize was, because it no longer exists.
Okay. Well, and McDonald's now does have all of this on their website, right? Their entire menu and its nutritional breakdown is on their website.
Oh, it's really, it's kind of funny because in the movie they touch on that it's on the website, but at the time in 2004, there weren't.
Right.
It wasn't as prevalent. People weren't like on the internet as much. And so they kind of like were like, yeah, but who's got access to that, And then they went around the restaurant and showed where all the signs were that actually talked about nutritional value. But yeah, so let's get started. We're going to start off like we usually do. We're going to talk about things that we like, and then we'll talk about things that we didn't like.
All right.
Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right.
So let's talk about some things that we liked about the movie.
I think, things that I found interesting about the movie, I guess that could be a positive thing, was it talked about the lawsuits that took place. That was what started off the whole movie. A couple of girls in New York, they tried to sue McDonald's, saying that their weight gain was because of McDonald's.
Yeah. So framing it with that in the very start of the whole documentary was a very interesting way to do it. And from a procedural perspective, because he goes back to the whole childhood idea of McDonald's and children and
right. Yeah. So he talks about how like the marketing and the media and all of that revolving around McDonald's really appealed to kids.
They did not win that lawsuit.
They didn't. No. In the end, you find out that they didn't win that lawsuit. And then, as we talked about in the first movie, there was that cheeseburger bill, which is known as the Personal Responsibility in Consumption Act. And that passed, I believe, in the House in 2005. And that basically was like, you can't sue fast food restaurants for any of your health problems. It's not their fault. You have personal responsibility. So the movie lawsuit that they talked about was in 2002. And then in 2004 or 5, I think that bill was passed.
Okay. So right after this movie came out, which is interesting. I mean, alongside that, and that's probably one of the reasons that now we have laws that stipulate that these restaurants must put their nutrition information where people can see it. Whether that's online, on the wall in the restaurant, you have to be able to know.
Or if you ask for it, if you ask for it, they should be able to bring out like a folder or something.
I think there actually in some, depending where you are, I think there is a mandatory posting. Like you must make it publicly available. Yeah, so people can make the decision fully informed.
Yeah, if people understand what that information means, because not everyone knows how to read a nutrition label, So why am I looking at my notes and I'm not seeing the stuff that I liked? What I thought was interesting was they showed serving sizes, right? They did the comparison of serving size. And I guess at the time, they interviewed a woman and she said that in France, the large soda was the same size as a small in the US. So I think the small at the time was 16 ounces. And that's the largest size available. So in France, I looked up what it is now, and the medium soda is the largest one you can get, and that's 16 ounces. And the smallest one you can get is a mini, and it's 8 ounces.
Oh, that's current in France.
That's current in France, yeah. So I don't know if they ever changed or if they were always like that. So that was something that was interesting, is just like what the different sizes are like of French fries. When McDonald's first started and they had the tiny little fries, and then what it grew up to be.
Yeah.
By the time the movie came out, it was a massive serving. Car companies changed the cup holders, right? To fit the big drinks that started happening. So
Yeah, I liked the entertainment value of this movie a lot. I mean, I definitely would say this was definitely more for entertainment than to say it was rigorous in any way. Like In Defense of Food felt like it was like, we're going to make sure we stick tried and true to the literature and the data and help people with a message at the end. This one was, I don't know, a little bit more embellished.
It was a shockumentary, right? That was the word that we learned that I think we were struggling for that word for the first film, but this is definitely a shockumentary. Like there were things in it that were to draw you in. And I don't want to go into the bad stuff yet, but we'll stick with the good stuff. But I mean, it was a very well done shockumentary, right? It had the music, it had the graphics, it had all of the gross out parts.
They did, but at least they put that in a cartoon when they talked about the processing and the chicken nuggets. They used a cartoon to show us.
But not when he threw up.
Well, the throwing up I thought was a little odd because they put the minutes up there, right? And they showed this is what happened after 15 minutes, 22 minutes, whatever it was. And I was like, well, why did he eat so darn fast?
Yeah, and we can get into that too, and on the second half of this review. Yeah.
Okay, let's stick to. Can I say another thing I really liked and I appreciated? Yes. I think it's a completely, especially in 2004, but still to some extent today, the whole marketing to children and adolescents, and whether it's the playgrounds that they had or the fact that McDonald's was a clown. I mean, you don't create a clown as their spokesclown. And that is not for adults. That's clearly for children. And it took a page out of the tobacco industry's book of marketing to the young people to hit those reward centers in the brain that say, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. So that when they become adults and make their choices, they turn to the McDonald's drive-thru.
And they still remember the song.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think I know more than one. I mean, which is funny because I actually know all of their little jingles, and I didn't like hamburgers, so I didn't even eat that.
And yeah, we ate McDonald's on special occasions. Like I remember, and what's funny is when he goes to Chinatown, and because he's eating burgers all over the country, pretty much. But he goes to Chinatown and he pulls out the Big Mac and he's like, this is the only Big Mac I've ever had that actually looks like the picture. But that's what I remember them looking like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And my sister and I, like my mom would cut it in half and then we'd have half a Big Mac because we were little and split a fry.
Yeah.
And have a milkshake, of course. But it was special. It was like a very special occasion. I don't think I ever was like, oh, I want to go see Ronald McDonald because he was a clown and clowns are creepy. But anyways, we digress.
Well, in the movie, he mentions that 1 in 4 Americans go to a fast food restaurant every day.
Right.
That seems excessive to me.
And I didn't look up the numbers on that, but I believe it. I totally believe it because it's convenient. You have kids, you work, you're busy. It's seemingly cheap. Like I do believe it. And if you see like the lines at lunch when you're, driving around, when I moved to New Mexico from New York, I had a car and I don't know if I'd ever personally driven through a drive-through that I can remember. And I was like fascinated. Every morning I'd go to a different drive-through and get breakfast.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was easy. It was on my way to work. Why not? Get my coffee, my breakfast burrito.
Yeah. Well, back to what I thought they did well was it. The ethical breach in marketing specifically to children. I think they did a good job framing that and then bringing it to the lunchroom where that's just perpetuated and kids eat cruddy food at lunch and they're served really bad prepackaged food. And then he takes us to that one place in Wisconsin that was feeding.
Oh, the school in Appleton. Yeah, that was great. That was like my favorite part of the movie. So what was interesting is that when they were in the other schools and they're saying like, oh, well, this isn't the only thing the kids are eating. The kids, they're bringing their own lunches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Those kids are eating just like soda and fries.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I remember when we got a milkshake machine in our school and I had fries and milkshake for lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, if it's there, the kids are going to eat it. I mean, I'm sorry. They're not going to be like, oh, this is a side dish for my healthful salad.
Well, heck no. No, you can't expect that of children at all. You're going to go where your taste buds take you.
So the high school that they were talking about in Appleton, Wisconsin, is it's kind of a special school in that kids who aren't quite cutting it in like their
Mhm.
regular school
Mhm.
environment go there, and it kind of caters to whatever their needs are, their learning or behavioral needs.
Okay.
So in itself, it's a very cool program because they are trying to assist kids to graduate.
And they noticed that when they cleaned up the diet and gave them whole foods and colorful fruits and vegetables, and that they saw the teachers reported better behavior.
Better behavior, better focus, and ultimately there was no difference in the cost.
Which is
So
amazing.
it's incredible. You can have nutritious food at pretty much the same price. And yeah, I mean, and so many kids depend on the meals that are served at school. So
Mm-hmm.
if that's the only place that they can really get nutrition, like
Right. It should
that's
be
huge.
the one place that's reliable. The ramifications are felt over a lifetime. So the least we could do is get people to 18 with a healthy diet. I mean, especially when it's being USDA, shipped by the USDA or stamped by them for their approval. I mean, the least they could do is put up enough guardrails to keep it healthy for these kids.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I think, like I mentioned, like I think the story about the high school that changes the diet and you can see a change in the kids' behavior, that definitely was my favorite part of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it was a positive message too, right? It's like not just the problem, but here's someone who's trying out a solution, and lo and behold.
Yeah, yeah, and we like that.
Yeah,
We like to see the solution. We just don't want problems thrown at us.
right. Exactly. So I agree. I liked that too.
Was there anything else that, what I thought? It wasn't really positive. It was just kind of like amusing was that man, Don Gorski. He only eats Big Macs. He has at least 2 Big Macs a day,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a thin guy.
He said Big Macs are 90% of my solid food.
Yeah.
The dude
Oh
eats
no,
nothing but Big Macs.
he eats nothing but Big Macs, but he doesn't eat the fries. And he probably is not having the soda either.
I would agree with you because
But
he's
he won a
thin.
Guinness World Record. I mean, actually, like last year, he consumed like 32,000 burgers since he started doing this.
Well, in that little piece right there, that he's not doing excessive number of calories. So the difference is Morgan, the guy who's in Supersize Me, is eating nearly 5,000 calories a day.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. And you know what? I found something that the dietitian said he was eating 5,000, but I think when I did the math, it didn't come up that high either. And I don't know why I'm not finding my math here, but yeah, I think he was eating like 3,700. I think that was an exaggeration because to
Maybe
get 5,000, I mean, he must have had, maybe he was doing multiple sodas.
that's what I'm thinking. I think it had to be mostly from soda because that's the only way you could get there. There was a lot of sugar.
Yeah, because so a double quarter pounder with cheese is 740 calories. A double quarter pounder with cheese meal is 1,260 calories. And nowadays, I don't know what it was back then, but nowadays it comes with a medium fries and a medium soda. So that in itself is 1,260 calories. But if he supersized it, then it went up.
I think he said he supersized only 9 meals in the whole month, though.
Yeah. So I think I, and I tried to look, like I tried to see, I was like, there are 2 sodas on his desk. I tried to see what he was eating. He was not eating their set meals and having these health effects. He was binging.
Yes, I would definitely call it binging for 30 days in a row.
Did you see that syrup he put on the pancakes? Like, what the heck? Like, that was gross.
So that's a whole segment we need to do on high fructose corn syrup.
But that's just like, no, that's a segment we have to do on. Don't put that much syrup on. I mean, that was like, would you like pancakes with your syrup?
Right. But he's probably using the whole packet, right?
Right. I mean, and I'm sure people do that. And maybe that was just for entertainment purposes. But if he actually ate that much syrup, and that was more than 1 packet, I don't know. We're starting to delve into
The other side.
the other side of it. But okay, so yeah, so the dietitian claimed he ate 5,000 calories a day, with the average being 4,986, right? That's what she says.
And at the end of the movie, he said he ate a pound of sugar and a half a pound of fat every day. If that's the case, there's 3,600 calories, approximately, in just fat and sugar. So add another, I don't know how many, 12 to 14 ounces of pure protein and you get 1,400 more calories pretty easily.
Okay.
So it seems possible if it's true that he did a pound of sugar and a half pound of fat. Now, I don't know.
But can I say if somebody eats 5,000 calories a day of anything,
Yeah.
they're going to gain weight. 5,000 calories a day is a lot of food. And if you are sedentary, it's a heck of a lot of food.
Right, because he was losing muscle mass at the same time. So his basal metabolic rate, his caloric expenditure just to sit around was going down, down, down throughout the month. As you lose muscle mass, you lose your kind of, your body's idling, kind of like your car idles and uses a little bit of gas before you step on the pedal. It's the same thing with your metabolism. When you're sitting around watching TV or whatever, you're using a few calories because you're idling. And the more muscle you have, kind of the higher the RPMs, the higher your idle, there's more gas that you're using. So for a gentleman like him to be sedentary for a month, lose a good amount of muscle mass, and take in 5,000 calories, he's probably doing that would be like 3,000 calories a day in excess, right?
Oh, yeah. The dietitian told him to stay at 2,500 calories a day just to maintain his weight and limit his total fat to 80 grams a day. That seems like a lot of fat.
It does seem like a lot of fat.
She said with 25 grams of saturated fat. I don't know, but okay.
But it would have been nice to have, we saw the calipers come out. The exercise physiologist brought out the calipers and said, here's your fat. It was 11% at the beginning, but we never had a re-measurement of that. Did you notice that?
Yeah. And I'm not I don't know how accurate calipers are.
Oh, they're supposed to be fairly accurate. It's not like a flotation tank or something or
Yeah, but I went to a gym and somebody did the calipers on me and they told me that I was obese.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make sense.
Another good point that I think the movie made was that there are fast food restaurants everywhere, right? There are McDonald's everywhere in airports, and they mentioned hospitals, and that's actually true. Because where my dad had his open heart surgery in Florida, there was a McDonald's when you walked in the lobby. And I seem to recall that the little pad with the up and down button on the floor, on the cardiology floor, had the golden arches etched into it.
Wow.
I seem to remember that. I could have, no, that was true. We didn't have phones with cameras back then, so I couldn't have documented it. There's no evidence, but yeah, no, it was, and that's shocking, right? Like, your dad's in there for open heart surgery and, you can go downstairs and get McDonald's if you want. So I watched this movie, actually both times I watched it with my husband. And when he was in high school, he worked at McDonald's. So he gave me some little insider tips on how to order off the menu. He said that because when they showed the fish fillet and like how gross it was, he said, if you want it ordered fresh, just ask for it without cheese or without tartar sauce, and they have to make it fresh.
Ah, okay.
So that was a little
tidbit.
A little tidbit. And just if you want the tartar sauce, ask for it on the side.
Just for the record, that was a whole nother chain. That was Burger King's jingle. Hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special orders, don't upset us. Remember?
Oh, I remember. Was it Have It Your Way at Burger King?
That's it.
Oh, and I even said at Burger King. Have it your way. Okay, so we kind of talked about the more positive sides of the movie. And when we come back, we will talk about what we didn't like.
And what they didn't cover.
Ooh.
Till then. So we're back. We forgot to mention something that we liked, or I should say I liked. I liked his girlfriend. I thought she was a good addition in there as a vegan chef, her perspective, and she was entertaining.
Right. She was a good foil, I guess. I don't know, is that what you would call it?
Sure. Okay.
Like she was there for him, while he was doing his McDonald's experiment. And then in the end, she prepared some sort of, she called it her detox diet to kind of get him off the McDonald's and into healthy food.
Yeah. And so they showed his labs. I want to talk about that for a moment because I feel like they didn't tell us a few things that were important.
Okay.
And of course, I froze the screen on his labs because I wanted to see them more, line item. And I could make out that for whatever reason, he was having an autoimmune response. His thyroid antibodies were up. So there was a thyroid thing going on during this month that he didn't talk about.
Wow.
I'm not saying it was perpetuated after that month was over. It was probably due to the diet, but there was an endocrine effect of this diet for
So what
him.
did you see? What did you see on the lab?
It was antibodies to thyroid peroxidase. Basically, he had his T3, his free T3 and T4 were fine. His TSH was high. So by all indications, his thyroid was making thyroid hormone, but it was also having a little trouble doing so.
But we don't know if that happened beforehand.
No, because we only had that one clip. But my point is, it was left out of the whole storyboard.
Oh, interesting.
And if the thyroid is not functioning normally, that can certainly have an additive effect to all the other things he was doing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, good eye.
And the other thing that I feel like I want to add at this point is that he said he would feel depressed. Got it. They showed he was nutrient deprived on that particular diet. But he said he felt so much better every time he ate. And what they didn't mention, and I think this would be an interesting point, is what else is in that food? What we call excitotoxins. The chemical compounds that make you crave that particular food and make you feel better, more
I thought
awake.
they touched on, they didn't quite say what it was, but they did touch on that the food is made in a way with, those kind of.
I think if you already know that, you would know that, right? Like you already know that, you caught it in the movie, but I think it was glossed over so quickly and so incompletely. He just sits down with the gastroenterologist and says, I feel horrible until I eat this stuff and then I feel so much better. And like my brain goes to, well, that's because they dropped a few chemical compounds in there that affect your neurotransmitters in such a way to make you feel good.
Is that on the ingredient list? Like, do you see things that say, or is it?
No, and I don't think you have to claim that. The food industry, as you know, processed food in general is processed not only for shelf life, but also to become an addictive factor. And the only way to do that is to ring your bells up top in your head where your neurotransmitters say, yeah, that's good. And so it doesn't matter if it's McDonald's, KFC, or Taco Bell, they're all doing it.
Or Cool Ranch Doritos.
The Cool Ranch Doritos.
So something else that I found that was totally interesting was, so McDonald's doesn't have salads anymore. And they stopped the salads last year. And I think they were citing supply chain issues. But what's interesting is, because I looked at the menus for McDonald's in France and in Great Britain, and they have salads there. And actually in France and Great Britain, they offer vegetarian options. And I think it was in France, they have gluten-free options. And in England, they have vegan options. So the French fries here in the States are not vegan. They have beef flavoring, which is not made from beef, but it is made from wheat and dairy.
And by the way, those compounds that I was talking about that affect your neurotransmitters, they're almost always couched as flavoring.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it makes them proprietary.
But I thought that was kind of a surprise that the natural beef flavoring, it is made from natural things, but it's not made from beef. And they did that. They put the natural beef flavoring in that's made from dairy and wheat. They put that in their fries because the fries used to be cooked in lard. And then they took the lard out and replaced it with vegetable oil, and people complained about the flavor. And so they added beef flavoring in. So to all of you gluten-free vegans eating McDonald's fries, stop. But you can go to Europe and do it, because apparently over there, they don't use that.
It's a long way to go for some fries, though.
I had some when I went to England. I wanted to see what McDonald's was like over there. I just had the fries. I didn't have anything else. But yeah, it is kind of interesting to see the difference in the menus.
Agreed.
But yeah, so no salads. You can't get a salad. You can't get the parfait and other things that they mentioned, allegedly because of the supply chain issues.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because when I Googled it, I was like, oh, how many calories are in a salad? That the British site came up. Okay, so when we first started, we kind of mentioned about the shockumentary aspect with the music, those like creepy title cards, like sometimes with the clowns. Did you notice, like, it would come up and like the title card said "Sue the Bastards," and then it said like nutrition and
the last
mixed supper. Those are some ones that I kind of took note of. But there were like creepy clown drawings on some of them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that whole shockumentary aspect. And then the gross out moments where he like gorges himself on food within a short period of time and then throws up, and then they show it.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't just give us the sound effect.
And can I ask, like, why did we need to see him get a prostate exam?
That's a really good question. I think that he said around the heels of that happening, he said something about the checkups being thorough.
Oh, okay. Well, that one was very thorough.
So not only do we see the prostate exam, but we see it from the angle, the perspective of the doctor.
Oh, yeah.
So that's different.
That is correct. And that would be the nudity. That is the only nudity that I can recall.
Yes.
Okay, there were like some parts of the movie that didn't age well. And the first part was when they had Jared from Subway.
Yes, Jared from Subway, who talked to the young woman, 14-year-old.
Right. He was mostly talking with her mom, right?
Yes.
But still, so he's talking, yeah. So he's talking to a young girl, and fast forward, I don't know how many years, Jared is now serving 15 plus years in the state penitentiary because he was found with child pornography and he had paid and traveled out of state to have sex with an underage girl. So as soon as Jared, I forgot he was in the movie. And as soon as he showed up, like I just shut down. I was like, oh my gosh, no.
Right. But the offense happened years after this movie was made.
Or he was found.
Right. No, yeah. Yes. He was found guilty of the offense.
Years later. Yeah.
Right. So when
later.
the movie was made, that no one knew anything about.
Nobody knew, right? I mean, it was like miraculous how all this guy did was eat at Subway and he lost all this weight. And he, you know, his famous thing was holding up his pants, right? Like,
which he did.
Showing his pants that he used to wear.
Yeah. And he basically went around the country telling anyone who's overweight, you can lose weight, just go to Subway and eat.
Right.
Yeah. Which he did in the movie, apparently, because the 14-year-old said, I can't afford that.
There you go.
So onward, yes.
Okay. So, and then the other part that didn't age well was that when all of the Me Too stuff started happening in Hollywood, Morgan Spurlock actually came out and he confessed, I think it was like in a tweet, that he had committed like numerous acts of sexual, I guess, misconduct, right? A woman had once accused him of rape in college. And then he said that there was a case of sexual harassment in the workplace that had a claim was against him. And then he also said that he had been unfaithful to his past wives and girlfriends. And at the time, Supersize Me 2 was coming out. And because of this confession of him just being like, I'm putting this out there, this is, you know, something I did. Yeah, the second one didn't do well. It just were things where it's like, oh man, like these things, like I said.
See, this is why I don't want to know any of the backstories. You know? I know it's a reality, but
yeah, and then that had nothing to do with the movie, but the Jared thing, I was just kind of like skeeved. I was like, ugh.
Yeah. And I'm so sheltered from anything that has to do with pop culture that I had no idea when I watched it. It has its advantages.
Yes, it does. It does. The part of the movie that I disliked the most was the fat shaming.
Yes.
So the visuals in the movie, I mean, it starts off with Queen singing Fat Bottom Girls, and it's just all of these images of morbidly obese people with their heads obscured.
Right.
And it just kind of like that perpetuates through this whole movie. And then there's this one scene where he's sitting at a table eating McDonald's, and it's like a Violent Femme song, Fat, is playing as part of the soundtrack. And this person walks behind him and goes and gets like a soda or something, and walks back, and he's just chewing and eating. And it's like, it's a very large person is behind him. I was horrified.
Yeah.
At that point, I think I screamed, and I was like, what is this? Like, how are you fat shaming people? I mean, it was wrong. It was so wrong.
Yeah, I know exactly the scene you're talking about. It was really uncomfortable, and I was wondering where he was going to go with that scene, but that was the whole scene.
That was the scene. And I don't know if it was staged or what, but if it was staged, that was wrong.
Yeah.
If it wasn't staged, that was a complete violation. I mean, I don't know what that was.
Well, I think it's the part of him where he was showing is a little bit of a jerk.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, only a true unempathetic a-hole would do that and keep it in the movie. He made the choice of keeping it in the actual film. I mean, maybe he was having a bad day and he was a total bad mood. It was distasteful because it was kind of reflective of what was he conveying with his eyes? incredulity.
Yeah. That scene was just bad. I mean, as if all the previous footage wasn't enough.
And now let's be clear. He starts this whole thing at 6'2", 185 pounds, and he's fairly strapping. Like, he's not fat. He's got 11% body fat.
Right.
And so it's even worse coming from him, right? It's not like, it's like, dude, you have no idea what these people are going through. And his position of being completely not empathetic or sympathetic with anyone who's struggling seems to come through.
Yeah, no, that's kind of solidifies like his jerk factor.
Which is interesting because here goes his health. He gets a fatty liver. His cholesterol goes through the roof. He looks like crap. He feels like crap. And I found myself not all that empathetic with the man. And now, in reflecting him, talking about it out loud, I'm like, that's probably why I was like, yeah, I didn't really feel empathy for him. Maybe because all along he was kind of being not very nice. So I didn't have that warm fuzzy feeling or any kind of feeling like, oh, dude, be careful.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, not at all. There was a part in the movie that I thought was really funny when he started describing like he was having this sensation in his midsection. And he's like, he feels like a whooshing in his penis. And then the next scene, he's at the doctor. He went to see the gastroenterologist about this.
Yeah. Do you think that had something to do with the gastroenterologist being a female?
I don't know. I don't know if he discussed it with all of his doctors because he saw a cardiologist, a gastroenterologist, and an internal medicine doc. I don't know if that was something he discussed with all of them and he just kept that part in where he talked to the female gastroenterologist. But yeah, when they cut and he's like talking to her, I'm like, why did he go to her for that issue? It's
right.
So weird.
Either one of the other two would have been more appropriate.
I know.
Because it's probably a vascular issue if there's, blood flow issue. So the cardiologist would make sense. And then the other gentleman was a internist, so yeah.
And so like then finding out about the whole like Me Too thing, I'm like, what?
Okay, so we're also looking at it through the lens of 2022. So I'm just saying that because I think that some of this at that time he was doing that more blatantly than we would want to see now.
Right. This is not the way he would make the movie now.
I think
for sure.
True. Right.
And I'm actually curious to see the Supersize Me Too because it's about the chicken industry. And apparently, like, there were some farmers who were really hoping that he would come out with this movie because, poultry farmers, because he was kind of exposing things that were wrong on their end, you know, like, so, but, I'll watch that on my own dime. Was there anything else? There were the experts, right? So the experts that they had in the movie, some of them we'd seen before. One of them was Neil Barnard, who is from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which is that animal activist group. Mm-hmm. And then the other expert that we had seen before. Oh, so he was in the first movie that we saw, right? And then the other expert was Marion Nestle, and she was in Defense of Food, and she was a professor at NYU, a professor of nutrition and food studies and public health.
Yeah.
So there were some experts that weren't unfamiliar if you watched the other two movies beforehand.
Right.
Or if you've seen this movie before, then.
I like that Dr. Nestle's name is Nestle.
I love that her name. I forgot to look up to see if she actually was related, but yeah, I noticed that in the last movie that her name was Nestle. And I like her. I mean, I like the information she gives. So my takeaway, because there is another movie that came out that somebody did that was kind of like a rebuttal to this movie. Mm-hmm. Fathead. There's a movie called Fathead that came out is in 2009. And it was this guy who, I think he's a comedian, and somewhere it said he was a health writer as well. And he only ate McDonald's and he actually lost weight. But I started to watch the movie and I was like, I've seen enough McDonald's for a lifetime. Yeah.
There was also a book like that. There was a gentleman in Iowa who ate just McDonald's for 3 months and lost a lot of weight. But calorically, he kept his calories down to 2,000 and he walked 4 or 5 miles a day. Yeah.
So it's possible. I think kind of like my big takeaway is the serving size. I mean, don't eat 5,000 calories a day.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's, I don't know how many like professional athletes, how many calories they eat. I know that if you're working out all the time and you're, training for the Olympics, you can eat that many calories.
Can we talk about what a calorie is?
Oh, that's right. They did ask people, what is a calorie? What is a calorie, Tina?
Well, it's a unit of energy, ultimately, right? And so, of course, if you do what Morgan did and you sat around, you're only using up the calories that you need to sit there and idle on a couch for 24 hours a day. And that's not much. But if you exercise, you burn the calories. And so you can take in more calories. So if he did those 5,000 calories and he kept up with his 4 to 5 miles a day, I bet his labs wouldn't change that much. He might gain a little bit of weight because he wasn't walking off all 5,000 or whatever. But if he kept up his usual exercise routine, and the dude definitely had an exercise routine before, if he kept it up, it might not have been anywhere near as profound a change on his labs and his physical being.
True.
Because a calorie is energy, and you have to either expend it or store it. That's it. Once it goes in your mouth, I mean, other than eliminating it in your stool.
So I actually wrote down like what they said the calorie was. Cause I was like, when we were interviewing people, what's a calorie? I was like, it's a unit of energy. But specifically, 1 calorie is the amount of energy it takes to raise the temperature of a liter of water by 1 degree centigrade. Yeah.
You know, that's a Trivial Pursuit question.
Is it?
Yeah, it's one of the green ones. Yeah. Okay, I have to say one thing in your honor. You probably didn't even notice this, but there was a whiteboard behind Morgan in some of these shots that he did at his office. Did you see there was a word on that whiteboard that you have used in a past episode that I thought was funny? Well, other people thought it was funny too, but he had the word brain farts.
I saw that. I saw the brain farts thing. I think those were like projects he was working on.
I think so too. The whole thing in the background implied that he worked on documentaries in general.
Right. I think that's what he does. Yeah. But I saw the brain farts thing. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it made me laugh. So if there are people who haven't seen this and don't really want to see it, the net result is his cholesterol goes up, his triglycerides go up. He gets
like 200. I mean, like I wrote down his labs initially, and then what they went to. Like his triglycerides were like really low initially, and then they like skyrocketed.
Yes. And so the very first movie in this series that we had, which was What the Health, demonized saturated fat. In this one, I noticed only the nutritionist really brought up sugar, and the doctors were all about the fat. That's a lot of fat, and you're eating a lot of fat. The take home from this, I mean, the bottom line is, it's the fat and sugar combination that's the worst. So even in this movie, when he talked to the son of the Baskin Robbins.
Oh, Baskin Robbins, right.
Right? And he's a health guy. I mean, he's turned away from the ice cream, empire because of health reasons. The point is, ice cream is like the worst. You have a lot of fat and you have a lot of sugar. So just think of that as the prototypical kind of worst, metabolically, the worst thing you can do. And it doesn't have a ton of nutrients. I mean, milk has some, but metabolically, the worst storm is when you put excessive fat with excessive simple carbohydrate. That's the worst metabolic condition you could put your body in.
And he did it really well.
He did it every day.
Yeah, for 30 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay. So let's cut to the rating. I'm curious to know, on our scale of 5 broccoli being the best, what rating would you give this movie, Tina?
I'm going to give it 3. 1, I think I'm feeling pretty generous. I think it's worth watching, but I think it's pretty clearly embellished. I do find the most offensive aspects his fat shaming.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very distasteful. I think that, there was a little gratuitous parts like the prostate exam. At the same time, I think that if the average American watches it, they might walk away with, okay, some of the messaging comes across. Again, I kind of go back to the kids. I think that's the messaging that I wish we could just institute like yesterday. How about you? What would you give it?
I'm going to give it a 2.
Yeah.
2 broccoli, because I mean, I think a lot of the information is dated, right? Mm-hmm. Because I mean, there have been changes at McDonald's, not that I'm defending McDonald's in any way, but I think you can get a similar message by watching a different movie. I don't know. I think watching In Defense of Food, you can get a similar message without it being this gross out, like him vomiting. Even that animation I thought was gross with the chickens. Like, I don't know. I think to 2. Because it wasn't completely horrible, but yeah.
Yeah, and I was flipping it around in my brain. What do I give it for a 2004 film compared to a current film? And I think yes, today, if it came out yesterday, I would have given it less for sure.
Yeah. And I think when I watched it, whenever it was 2007, maybe, I think I was like, oh, wow. Like I did, I just watched it. I was on video. It was on a video cassette. I remember parts of it. I actually mixed up parts of it with, I think there was another movie that came out where they actually showed that McDonald's burgers don't decompose. And I thought it was in this movie, but it wasn't. But anyways, yeah, I think it definitely affected me more watching it again than it did the first time. I was like, oh yeah, well, don't eat fast food, of course. And now this time it was just like, wait a minute, let's rewind that. What are you doing? Like I don't know. It just affected me differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I would love to put someone on a healthy 5,000 calorie a day. If you can create that much, that'd be a large volume of food. But
I don't think you could eat that much.
I mean, it'd be hard.
Oh my gosh.
But if you could, and then you just sat around on your couch like he did, what would happen?
I think you'd be sitting on the toilet.
Point well taken.
What are you eating? Like beans? I mean, you're eating a lot of beans. Or a lot of fat. Either way, you're
it would have to be a lot of fat because there's no other way to do it.
I know. Oh my gosh. All right. Oh, you know what? I actually just came up with a moment of woo for this series.
All right, do it.
I think the moment of woo are these like shockumentaries.
Oh.
I mean, and I'm sure there were parts in, in Defense of Food that may have been embellished or something, but it didn't have that feeling. But I think for the moment of woo, I'm just going to talk about, when you see a movie that evokes a visceral response, the way that the first and the third movies did, question what you're seeing.
Right. So
I think that's kind of my moment of woo.
All right.
These movies.
Can we just have a BS meter?
A BS meter, yeah.
Like when does your BS meter peg? Is it halfway? Yeah. I can feel the best BS meter going, got the little needle.
That's not something that's in all of us. And so, because like I said, the first time I watched this, I was like, oh yeah, okay, sure. And now, a decade plus later, I'm like, I question.
Right. So, yeah, I think we were primed up in 2004 for this as it was, to take it, hook, line, and sinker, just believe the whole thing. Right. And I think now we know a lot more than we did then. Both us and the collective us.
Exactly. Okay. So on that note, I'm Dr. Leah Sherman.
And I'm Dr. Tina Kaiser.
And this is the Cancer Pod.
Until next time, we're going to resume our old format. So we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the Cancer Pod. Remember to subscribe, review, and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media for updates. And as always, this is not medical advice. These are our opinions. Talk to your doctor before changing anything related to your treatment plan. The Cancer Pod is hosted by me, Dr. Leah Sherman, and by Dr. Tina Kaiser. Editing by Brogan Malloy. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. See you next time.
To all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.